in the pre-election campaign. There's a national voters register, uncertainty, that causes uncertainty and undermines electoral transparency, and most importantly, the funding. I think there's something that most of you have spoken to about the funding, and that how even the state should be offering more funding to EMBs. And then finally, as we know, the electoral disputes in Ghana, we had one, Zimbabwe, Kenya also had one. So electoral disputes and the resolution. But the biggest and most probably biggest threat, which is emerging as we now know, is that of fake news. I say it's an existential threat because clearly it's taking different dynamics, different dimensions in which we are not quite sure where we'll. All sorts of characters have popped up. You will have heard of Cambridge Analytica, which I will speak to very briefly. But first of all, let's start off with some kind of definition. I think the genesis and origins of fake news are quite well known to all of you already. It's been with us for many, many years, even decades. First memorable example is that of the Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels during World War I, before Hitler assumed power in 1933. For Nazis, their propaganda, the mantra was, if you tell a big one. And if you tell it often enough, people will begin to believe it. And this was something which was pasted in the record we showed in Mein Kampf. Goebbels, as you will know, is an avowed propagandist, and he did a lot of work for him. And he's well credited for how he was able to change the narrative of the war and the Nazi propaganda machine at the time. So those are or at least probably the greatest exponent of what one can call a fake news, if you will. But in quickly moving to the definition of fake news, according to modern communication, is the deliberate spreading of false information. There are other definitions which and misleading information published as authentic news, generally understood to be deliberate, however possibly accidental. Fake news can be understood also as false, untruthful, or out of context contents that are disseminated to promote disinformation to the public. The diffusion of the term started in December 2016 in the context of the US presidential campaign, as we know, with Trump. And since then, people have been trying to define and understand better this phenomenon. Continuing the fake news definition, it has actually itself become a matter of controversy. In 2018, the UK government opted for two alternative concepts of fake news. I'm sure you'll be able to confirm that from you. So the UK government opted for two alternatives. That's disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation, that is the deliberate creation and sharing of false and or manipulated information that is intended to deceive and mislead audiences. And secondly, misinformation, that is inadvertent sharing of false information. However, UNESCO has a handbook for journalists looking at aspects of fake news. It started doing something like that, and it says that news means verifiable information in the public interest. And therefore, information that does not meet these standards does not deserve the label of news. Ergo, fake news is an oxymoron, paradox. And so the controversies will continue about the definition, and I'm sure many tomes will be written about it. But let's quickly segue to the issue of the case studies. And like I said, these are illustrative cases, which examples of fake news: Kenya, Nigeria, Zambia, Cameroon, Zimbabwe, and Ghana. For Kenya, I think we all know the story of what happened in Kenya, but just to give you a sense of the registered voters, which I want to do with each country, so we can get a scale and be able to compare of the registered voters versus the social media statistics and so on, and how that also impacts the work. So according to Kenya's IEBC, there are 9.9 million registered voters aged between 18 to 35. 49% of Kenyans receive their news through social media, and that's a very important fact to note. It's clearly a very wired up country. A lot of you will have been to Kenya and you know how very well connected they are. The 2017 elections period saw multiple hacking attempts at website. Its online information is landscape is diverse, vibrant, representing a wide range of issues of viewpoints. They have super bloggers, super tweeters, and so on and so forth. Social media, in short, has become instrumental in the country. And that is the important narrative to understand and appreciate as we go through what the whole definition of fake news is about and its impact on the electoral integrity. But during the 2017 election season, social media enabled opinion influences to proliferate, unfortunately leading to online manipulation and overt disinformation. A number of news websites were registered with legitimate sounding names to disseminate false news such as CNN Channel 1.com, and so on, undermining the quality of the information online. Propaganda, hate speech, and social media campaigns targeting individuals or organizations affiliated with the opposing side were common during the elections, including Google ads that were paid, and Facebook sponsored posts, and so on. And so, in short, there were a number of events, there were issues that took place during the election, some of which include, even a WhatsApp group administrator who was arrested in August 2017 for allegedly spreading false information on a platform. And the WhatsApp thing is also key. We all have heard of cases in India where WhatsApp, I think someone spoke to it earlier today, how WhatsApp has become a major source of proliferation of fake news as well, and how regulation is being sought for that, and so on. And so, as we know, the story of the Kenyan elections is characterized with the controversy that we all know, but there were multiple hacking attempts of the Election Commission's website, while the opposition claimed the electoral results were hacked, leading to the opposition candidate's loss. There was also the IT administrator who was assassinated. But the bottom line about all of this was that the electoral integrity of the EMB was grossly affected as a result. There were other issues, finally, on the Kenya bit, where the constant generation of falsified memos and statements were claiming to come from the IEBC, the Kenya's EMB. So some of the recommendations that have come from there is that in order to respond to this trend, it was recommended that the IEBC create specific fonts for IEBC, so the fonts would be just unique to the Electoral Commission, and they would use distinct seals or tints as well, and then they would have a verified WhatsApp number, making the use of status updates to counter fake news. Now we move on to Nigeria, very quickly. In Nigeria, the registered voters as of January 2018, 73.9 million. The incidences of the attack on the EMB's inter-cyber army, this is just a snapshot of how the website looked like, struck by Nigerian cyber army, and so on. And then the Nigerian, in October 2008, October 2018, my apologies, the Atiku Abubakar's alleged endorsement by a gay association, you can see the snapshot there, and ahead of the 2019 elections, this would prove to be quite disastrous. LGBT movement endorses Atiku for president and gives reasons. So that's the area. For Zambia, in the case of Zambia, the registered voters are 6.69 million. Social media and communication platforms have played a key role in mobilizing Zambian citizens and civil society during the elections, the 2016 elections. The hashtag, as was the case in Kenya and Nigeria, and so on, is used by many observers to follow, monitor, report, and share election-related news and information. The Zambia Elections Information Center a stakeholder platform allowed citizens to actually monitor the vote and report any suspicious incidents via SMS or WhatsApp. It was all in anticipation of some of the possible fake news that could come up. And so there was a great deal of monitoring of Facebook and Twitter. The Electoral Commission of Zambia actually used both Facebook and Twitter to communicate with its voters while conferences were live streamed on social media. Citizens were able to set up 2 election-related social media platforms: Know Your Candidates, which introduced candidates to voters, and Scorpion, which provided details on the candidates' platforms and campaign promises. The voters were then able to verify their registration status by SMS. But interestingly, and this is an important backdrop to the Zambia elections, the survey by Afrobarometer, led by CDD, which is an African-led series of national public attitude surveys on democracy and governance in Africa, published in July last year, found that many Zambians believe freedom of speech is being eroded, while the percentage of people who watch what they say about politics online rose from 62% to 72% between 2012 and 2017. That's an important statistic because it gives you a sense, therefore, the self-monitoring that has begun to take place by Zambians themselves around any kind of elections. In the absence of any kind of policy that may exist on countering the fake news. The survey found that only 1 in 3 Zambians feel comfortable criticizing the president. But meanwhile, pro-government trolls were becoming increasingly common on social media platforms, again, Facebook, typically responding to posts that were critical of the government with a flood of insults or comments on unrelated issues. There was a high-profile example, a fake Facebook profile impersonating the communications person of the opposition, one Larry Muitwa. He was a leading social media activist for the opposition UPND. He was supposed to have posted comments that made him appear to celebrate a fire that devastated a popular market in Lusaka. And you see from the snapshot just how it was reported. The fake news report actually was disguised to look like the real thing, and the fake official statements, as we will see from fake news, have become a dominant feature of the online information landscape, particularly following the disputed general elections in August 2016 and the arrest of the main opposition leader, Africain for treason in April 2017. So here's a snapshot of the man in question, like Mitra, UPND chair, the burning of the market. And the next screenshot, you will see that he has responded in an article in which he denies burning City Market and accuses the people in question of lying. And he goes on to explain actually how the timelines were even inconsistent. He was not around, the time difference, it was in the UK and so on and so forth. So it's a whole quick, definitely an example of some of the fake news that we've been seeing. But other examples of fake news in Zambia, the opposition, once again involving the opposition. The opposition UPND allegedly engaging Cambridge Analytica, which I'll speak very briefly about along the presentation. Accusations started by government to divert attention from impeachment of the opposition leader, affectionately known as HH. There was a leaked letter that proposed to unmask HH and linking him to the disruption of the election. And the next snapshot, it's a bit small. I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, that's supposed to be the letter that was scanned and copied, which shows Cambridge Analytica writing to HH about the details, reducing the fees for support to help them in their campaign. So that's that with Zambia. We turn to Cameroon now. Cameroon is a bit of a curious case. The registered voters, 6.66 million. There were incidences of attack. The incidents of attack on elections in Cameroon, suffice to say, were virtually non-existent, because it was always going to be a foregone conclusion, as far as some analysts were concerned, that the incumbent was going to win, and therefore the opposition was unlikely to really gain critical mass. So judging by the country's antecedents, yeah, it was almost always unlikely. And the obvious re-election of the applied to that. But even with that, while there were unverified results flooding through WhatsApp and Facebook, once again, Facebook and WhatsApp, what was most remarkable about these recent elections, which further dented the credibility of the process, was the emergence of what would prove to be fake international observers purportedly working for Transparency International. Now, in this snapshot, there's a tweet by an activist complaining about the fact that the fake observers were not, the case was not prominent, and therefore someone else, one Mefo, who was in prison for so-called fake news, was one being targeted rather than that whole issue of fake news of the observers. So if we can quickly go to the other slide, the six observers themselves were French, Spanish, American, and Tunisian, and it's clear that they were fake. And so you can see this is a snapshot of the pictures that went around. So Israel embassy commented on it, as some of them were from Israel. Other instances of fake news was MTN Cameroon, claiming that it was supposed to be setting up the lines, the internet would go off. MTN came back and said it's not the case. In Zimbabwe, you can quickly see that with the EMB, there's a circulation of fake samples of ballot papers aimed at discrediting the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission. And the Zimbabwean Electoral Commission came back in an article that discredited that and said it was not the case. There are other developments in Zimbabwe which have spoken to this. But more worrying for Zimbabwe has been the ZANU-PF online warriors pitching against the opposition's counterparts. In Ghana, Ghana was plagued by controversy in 2017 because in July it was reported that the Economic and Organized Crime Office had begun investigating allegations that senior EC officials had misappropriated funds in 2012 and 2013. That led to a whole backlash. Eventually, the Electoral Commission was changed, but there were other instances in November 2016 where there was an incident of fake pink sheets, which turned out, which was confirmed by the police to be fake. And there were also thumb-printed ballots that were found in a hotel room in Kumasi, capital of the Ashanti region, which were confirmed by the police to be fake. This is a snapshot. A snapshot of the then Electoral Commissioner Charlotte Osei, who came out to deny this. But what we can say about the influence of fake news, the negative influence of fake news on electoral integrity, it's clear to all of us who are here. It erodes trust, it builds and feeds on community divisions. It's a threat to the nation of truth, a threat to the notion of truth. It is toxic for public discourse. It fuels hate speech, which leads to violence and death. And of course, existential threat. That's how I started it all off. Other things that fake news does. Some of the strategies that have been used on electoral campaigns through use of fake news. You can read in the slide when you see it in Nigeria, Zambia, Cameroon, and then the question of Cambridge Analytica. There's not sufficient time to talk about it, but we all know that they're a disgraced political consultancy that was closed down in 2018 for being involved in certain elections in Kenya, Nigeria, even Zambia. But the policy environment quickly, or some kind of policy environment in taming fake news. Well, Facebook, as we now know, has become the first responder, if you will, in helping tame fake news. And examples abound in Africa. Cameroon asked Facebook to help, and so on and so forth. But in countries like Zambia, the communications regulator, ZICTA, has been referenced in January 2018 to respond to an incident where State House documents have been forged. And there are other cases in Zambia as well. But the continue the policy environment quickly. Nigeria, Zambia, Kenya, Cameroon, society organizations are creating independent fact-checking mechanisms to counter fake news. In Zambia, for example, they have the Alliance of Community Action, which is a local NGO which has launched a fact-checking project. We launched it in 2017. And just recently, just 2 weeks ago in Nigeria, Cross-Check Nigeria was established. It's a combined effort of First Draft and International Center for Investigative Reporting. It brings together 90 media houses who help each other with support from the International Center for Investigative Reporting to examine news content and see whether how fake it is. Let's see. So policy. So this is just an example of when it was launched in Nigeria and the help that they were getting because of the information of the experience of Brazil that helped inform Nigeria. In Ghana, the situation is a bit worrisome. We are not really taking the issue of fake news into question, so therefore there's a lot of work to be done. But in conclusion, the policy environment to tackle fake news means the responses that we see and will continue to happen are national and ad hoc or specific. So it's quite encouraging to see that civil society organizations and hackers are joining forces in countries like Nigeria. But the way forward would include a regional response by organizations like ECONEC, which is ECOWAS's network of electoral commissions, which can establish a unit monitoring fake news. And the fact that ECOWAS now, for example, has ECOWAS Radio, which it took over from United Nations Mission in Nigeria in June. ECOWAS Radio can be used, it means that the content from ECOWAS Radio can be created to help listeners identify what would constitute fake news. So on the regional level, in my view, those are responses to the issue of fake news. And this could be a brave new world in which fake news becomes the new normal, like I said, but it certainly can be overcome. And I believe, as someone who also looks at the regional a lot, that we can look at what countries are doing and what regional responses exist and how those can be adopted and adapted to the continental level. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you ever so much for the insights that you shared with us, not only from sorting out some of the problems of fake news, the different formats that can come in, why this is a problem for electoral democracy and democracy more broadly, but also beginning to profile some of the responses that EMBs and the international community can come and bring together to try to address it. Now it's your turn. I just want to check that there isn't any fake news and that we're looking to close at 3:10 this session still, is that correct? Yep, 10 past? 20 past. Okay, we've got a bit more time, 20 past 3. But if I could ask you to please make your comments relatively brief so that we can have as many of you share your insights as possible. And a good practice has been established already to take rounds of 5 questions. So I think we should try to continue that. So any takers for the first round of questions or comments? So 1 and then 2, and then number 3, 4, so female, number 5. Okay? To you, sir.
What I want to know is what happens there when we discover that these are fake news and what is online. Do they face justice or not?
Thank you, sir.
Merci. Je voulais réagir à la communication qui vient d'être faite parce que je suis à beaucoup d'attention et je l'ai beaucoup apprécié. Il il a fait un état exhaustif des fausses informations en disant que c'est une menace réelle pour les nations. Parce que les fausses informations peuvent engendrer la violence, les crimes, l'insurrection et tout le reste. Je voulais rebondir sur cela pour faire une proposition à la Commission de l'Union africaine. Parce que, en tant que participant à ce forum, j'ai écouté comme beaucoup d'autres les communications qui ont été faites et qui, pour la plupart, ont ressemblé à de brillants cours magistraux faits par de jeunes chercheurs africains, eux-mêmes brillants, c'est vrai. Et après les avoir écoutés les uns et les autres, je me suis posé la question si on ne pouvait pas envisager de renverser les choses. Lorsque ces communications ont été faites, l'impression qui s'en dégage, c'est que les organes de gestion des élections sont loin de leurs objectifs. Et je voulais qu'on imagine la possibilité de les laisser parler. Ce matin, nous avons suivi le vice-président de la commission ivoirienne qui a pris la parole pour faire le point sur l'enrôlement des électeurs, sur le niveau de participation des électeurs aux élections. Il a dit, quand ça marche bien, personne n'en parle. Quand ça ne marche pas bien, tout le monde en parle. Est-ce qu'il n'est pas possible, lorsque nous nous rencontrons dans ce genre de forum, d'appeler les gestionnaires eux-mêmes qui viennent ici rendre compte de leurs expériences? J'ai constaté qu'on a pu donner à chaque communicateur, par exemple, 30 minutes d'exposé. On peut faire parler 3 professionnels d'élection, 10 minutes à chacun. Et ensuite, des experts brillants de l'Union africaine vont intervenir pour poser des questions, pour faire des suggestions, pour améliorer l'existant. Parce que sinon, on a cette impression que, d'une rencontre à une autre, on a l'impression qu'on n'a pas du tout avancé. Au contraire, on a reculé. Rien n'a été fait. Je vais m'arrêter là pour ne pas en dire davantage. Hein. Mais l'Afrique est toujours présentée comme un continent en perdition. Ici, plusieurs personnes se plaisent à dire, oui, en Afrique, les élections, les régions des élections sont connues à l'avance. Tout le monde se plaît à le dire. Et à force de le dire, on donne un écho à cela, tel que ça devient comme une réalité. Comme vous venez de le dire, avec raison, le dernier orateur, qui a dit que si vous voulez mentir, alors dites un gros mensonge, pour que les gens vous croient. C'est cela dont l'Afrique souffre aussi. Personne ne peut encourager l'Afrique d'avancer. On dit vous êtes des incapables. Et à chaque fois, c'est le discours que nous, organes chargés des élections, nous entendons. Alors, je voulais simplement suggérer que l'Union africaine nous laisse parler. Quand il s'agit des mécanismes d'enrôlement, on fait par les techniciens. Quand il s'agit de la manière de lutter contre la corruption à l'occasion de la préparation, du déroulement des élections, du dépouillement, de l'application des résultats, on laisse parler des professionnels. Et les experts viennent pour faire la critique et nous dire oui, c'est bien, mais voilà quel chemin on peut suivre pour conforter, consolider les acquis. Sinon, on aura cette impression que à chaque fois, on n'a jamais avancé. L'Afrique n'a jamais avancé. On fait sur place et pire, on recule. Je n'ai pas le temps d'en dire davantage, mais c'est la petite contribution que je voulais faire après avoir passé ici finalement 12 heures à écouter nos enfants, c'est vrai, qui ont beaucoup de mérite, c'est vrai, nous faire des enseignements magicaux. Mais nous voulons écouter les gestionnaires, les professionnels des élections, qui nous rendent compte de ce qu'ils font. Merci.
Thank you so much. Give the floor to more people and use the third area.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the interesting take at the fake news, which I believe most of our EMDs are struggling with. Most electoral commissions are simply ill-equipped. I happen to work with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, and it was a nightmare for the Electoral Commission to deal with the oh.
Translation, French. The French translation.
Oh. Should I go ahead? Yes, I was saying that the electoral commissions are really ill-equipped to deal with the media. Obviously, there are shortcomings in most commissions in that they are reactive. So we see this really becoming a problem. You know, some animal somewhere, it's fake news, it doesn't have owners. Where I come from, we say hit the dog and then you will see the owners. Now, if you know the owner, why talk about fake news and not talk about these criminals who generate deliberately to create conflict? Whether it is the criminals who created the story or the criminals who paid money for their confusion to be created. Because we seem to be looking for some silver bullet somewhere. And I doubt that we'll get that if we keep on talking about fake news. Fake news is nothing. The problem is the people who are creating problems. When are we going to say it as it is? You know, so I just feel like we are going around the problem by saying it is a fake news, fake news. I mean, if a thief steals something, we talk about the thief, the individual. When it comes to the news, it is theft. You don't talk about the, you know what I mean? So I just find that maybe we will not be able to address this quickly if we keep on referring to it as something that exists somewhere out there without being linked to the people. There must be immediate punitive measures put in place.
Yes, understand.